Hello everybody and welcome back to another video, and once again, it is Picks Day once again. Yes, finally, after a week off, the Overwatch League is back for the 24th week of the 2020 season. We have matches today, as well as tomorrow and Sunday, so back to some of the old school Overwatch days, at least Overwatch League days where we had matches multiple days a week and not just a weekend. So let's jump in. Let's take a look at my picks. The format of this video is going to be a little different than what it was in the past. So let me know how you feel about this new format. I'll try to do it for the remainder of the season, and if everyone likes it, we'll keep it going into next season. But let's jump into it and start with the Friday matches. There are two matches on Friday. The first one is the Vancouver Titans taking on the Paris Eternal. Paris Eternal coming off of their big victory in the Summer Showdown for North America. I think the chances are very high that the Paris Eternal walk away from this one with the win. I think the Eternal have looked very good recently. Obviously, they won the Summer Showdown. It's very difficult to say a team doesn't look good when they win a big tournament. Titans have looked promising. They did take a map off the Eternal in the Summer Showdown, but it wasn't really that close of a series beyond the first map. Paris pretty much just rolled them from then on. You would expect roughly the same thing to happen this time around. I don't think it's going to be very close. I think the Eternal win this one pretty handily. Probably a 3-0, but maybe a 3-1, depending on what happens. The second and final game on Friday is the Houston Outlaws taking on the Dallas Fuel, the battle for Texas. It is one of my two big pick games for the weekend. This one is a little difficult. The Fuel have looked pretty good recently. I don't think they've looked their best recently, but they have still looked pretty good. And with Decay's return in the Summer Showdown, they looked better than what they had. But the Houston Outlaws also look really, really good. They have looked way better recently than they have at any other point this season. Last time these two teams played, I believe, was when they played in the May Melee. Dallas won that one 3-1, essentially carried by Decay's heroics. I'm curious to see what happens this time around, to see what happens if Decay can kind of carry them again. But I'm actually going to pick the Houston Outlaws because I've been very impressed by their play recently. Very good performance against the Florida Mayhem in the Summer Showdown, and even right before the Summer Showdown happened. This Outlaws team, I think, is on a really good trajectory. I think they're on a bit of a hot streak. I think they look their best so far. They did just recently release Spree. I don't think that's going to have much of an impact at all. Meko is their flex tank. He is the only player so far on this team to not be subbed out once. He's a really good player. He's a really consistent player, so that would be why. This is a really good match, I think, but I'm going to give the Outlaws the edge in this one because I think they are just ever so slightly the better team, at least at the moment, but we'll see what happens on Friday, I guess, which is today. Moving on to Saturday, it's the big day where most of the matches are taking place. I don't know why I took so long to say most, but I did. First match we have is the Spark taking on the Dynasty. This one I think should be pretty good. Spark have been a little inconsistent recently. They had a really good performance early in June, and then petered out towards the end of June and started to look pretty weak, losing to the Spitfire in a dominant fashion. So we don't really know what to expect from the Spark. I think it's possible that they come back from the Summer Showdown looking a lot better, looking more polished, but we don't know for sure yet. The Seoul Dynasty, I think, have been on a bit of an upward trajectory recently. They did take a map off of the Shanghai Dragons' Dominant 6 roster, the only team so far to take a map off of that roster. So I think that the Dynasty have shown improvement. I like that they've worked Michelle into the roster more. I think he's looked pretty good being worked into the roster more. I like the Seoul Dynasty in this one. I think they just have proven a little more recently to be more consistent. They've shown better results recently. I don't think they're necessarily significantly better than the Hangzhou Spark, but right now I think that the Dynasty have proven themselves enough to me to think that they will take this one over the Spark. Next is the Guangzhou Charge against the London Spitfire. This one's interesting for me. Spitfire are a team who, a bit of a disappointment in the Summer Showdown, falling to the Seoul Dynasty, but I thought that that was really expected. It wasn't too much of a disappointment. They took a map off of them or drew with them. I don't remember exactly what happened, but it wasn't a complete, 3-map clean sweep. I like London. I think they're a good team. But the Charge are a different animal. The Charge are a better team in pretty much every way. Yes, there's some weird things going on with the Charge, with them adding Crystal and then them adding a pyramid scheme as a sponsor. A little bit fishy and suspicious of the Charge, but I don't think it takes away from their play as a whole. I think the Charge win this one pretty convincingly and work their way to locking up the top 2 spot in the Pacific region. The final match in Asia for the weekend is the Chengdu Hunters taking on the New York Excelsior. Last time these two teams played was, I believe, in the May Melee, where the NYXL took the win 3-2. I don't expect the match to be that close this time around. I expect New York to win it somewhat convincingly, though their matches have gotten closer and closer as the season progressed. The first one was a 3-1, then it was a 3-0, then a 3-1, then a 3-2. So it could go the way of the Hunters. I'm not positive. New York is not looking good right now. They really, to me, feel like the Atlanta of Asia, though they've not as bad as Atlanta, or Atlanta are super inconsistent and are losing every game that they lose at least one map. New York just feels to me like they will beat down on teams that aren't above them and will just get completely embarrassed by teams above them. And they don't feel like a team that really has upset potential. They just don't really show any of it. I think New York has the roster and the talent to do that, but I need to see more from them before I think that they're a really dominant team. But Chengdu is the weakest team in Asia. I think New York should be able to handle them, but I also wouldn't be surprised if New York loses. They have not had the best performances against the Chengdu Hunters so far this season. They've had some pretty good ones. They've had some pretty bad ones. I think it's going to be closer than what it probably should be, but I still think that at the end of the day, the NYXL will come away with the win. The first North American match on Saturday is the Vancouver Titans taking on the LA Gladiators. This is actually a pretty tough one. The Gladiators do not look good. They have been struggling a lot recently. Lost to the Justice in the Summer Showdown. Barely beat the Justice before the Summer Showdown. Obviously had that loss to Boston. They lost to, I believe, Houston. They have not looked very good so far in the recent weeks and recent months. The Titans have looked like they have improved greatly. But I've noticed a bit of a pattern with the Gladiators. After they lose a match, they tend to bounce back the next week and get a win, or at least their next match and get a win. So I think the Titans will not be able to beat the Gladiators this time around. I think it'll be close, 3-1, 3-2. But I think ultimately the Gladiators are going to walk away from this one with the win. I don't think they will accept a loss to the Titans. They have struggled too much. They have had good moments, and there have been times where they've looked in form. They just haven't been able to stay consistent. I think there's some things that need to happen in terms of coaching and the way that they plan and the way that they use OG and they use LH Cloudy, and they need to really kind of reassess where they are as a team. But I think the addition of Kevster has really helped this team a lot. They've struggled a bit since Kevster has come in, but I think he has had a really positive impact on this Gladiators roster. And I think that while they have struggled recently, I think they should be able to take the win over the Titans. But it should be pretty close. Next, we have the Washington Justice taking on the Toronto Defiant. This is an interesting one. This is a bit of a, dare I say, trap game for the Defiant. Then the Defiant are favored, and they should be favored, and you should expect them to win this match. They have the better roster. They have the better record. In all ways, this team is the better team. The Justice have looked, though, to be improving as of late. I don't think they are where they would like to be, obviously. The win over the Gladiators was nice. They did not look very good against the Shock, though at times Tuba did find some success on the Genji. I don't know how strong Genji is going to be this meta, but at the end of the day, if you ask me who I like on the Genji between Agilities and Tuba, I'm going to take Agilities. I thought that he looked better throughout the Summer Showdown. Obviously, he had more matches, so it's a little bit easier to say someone looks better when they have more matches to play. But I think that the Defiant are a team that are on the rise. They are a team who had been a team that I was confident was better than what their record suggested. They just weren't getting those results. Now I think you have the possibility for them to actually prove that they are better than their record. As the season progresses, they got that extra win from the Summer Showdown. Justice, easy opponent. The Defiant should be able to beat with ease. I like the Defiant in this one. I am picking them to win it. Probably 3-1 or 3-0. I don't think this one's that close, but I'd say probably 3-1 is my prediction. Next, we have the San Francisco Shock taking on the Boston Uprising. I think the Shock takes one easily. Not even really much of a discussion about this one. Uprising, worst team in the league at the moment. Most certainly the worst team in North America, but I think overall worst team in the league in general. I think that the Uprising have just not been able to put things together, especially as of recently, or as of late. They just have really struggled, and I don't really like what we have coming from the Uprising. There's a lot of things I think they need to change, some additions they need to make to their roster that they just haven't done, and I think it's holding them back a lot. So, Shock are my team to win this one, and I think that should be everyone's pick because I don't see a world really where the Boston Uprising win this game. The final match of Saturday is my second big pick game. It is the LA Valiant taking on the Atlanta Reign. Interesting teams with some interesting roster things going on. The LA Valiant, of course, in the Summer Showdown did not play Lasher or Dreamer. I don't think that's going to be the case anymore. I think that was just something that they were dealing with at the time. Players having, anxiety, problems just from being separated from home for so long, depression, things like that. I think that's really what was wrong with the Valiant. I don't think it was an internal infighting thing, and that was made very clear by a lot of the Valiant players and by the coaching staff. This wasn't something that they felt was a problem in terms of our team's not going to recover from this. It felt like it was just, rough week for some of the players and staff, and we're going to bounce back when we get the chance. I think the chance is against the Atlanta Reign. The Atlanta Reign, the future of their roster with Baby Bay is in question. Baby Bay tweeting out at the end of the Summer Showdown that he was saying this was possibly his last tournament, or it was probably his last tournament, and that he wanted to win, but they didn't get very far, and that was something that he was kind of disappointed in. So I don't really know what's going on there. All I do know is that this is a really interesting matchup. The last time they played, I expected it to go the way of the Atlanta Reign. The Valiant surprised me, won that one in a reverse sweep. It was pretty impressive, honestly. That was kind of when the team really started to look good. That was really when people started to realize how good of a team the Valiant were. I still think they're the better team than the Reign. The Reign do not give me much hope and faith based on their performances against teams so far this season. They don't beat teams if they lose a map. I don't see a world where they just sweep the Valiant. I think the Valiant are the better team anyway. I think the Valiant take this one. Probably 3-1, 3-2. But I think the Valiant have proven themselves to be the better team than the Reign. And I think they take the win. Moving on to Sunday, the Paris Eternal will be taking on the Toronto Defiant. This actually could be a pretty good match. I like the Paris Eternal better for obvious reasons. The Paris Eternal are the defending champions of the Summer Showdown for North America. A very strong team that have really started to come alive in recent weeks, especially with Sparkle integrating into the roster more, with Genji being played. I think the Eternal have really started to show how good they are as a team. They're really good contenders and threats for the overall championship. While I do like the Defiant, I think that a lot of changes to the Defiant have been really positive. The addition of Numlocked and Cruz. We also learned, I believe, on Wednesday that they had a new coach from Talon Esports that came in and helped. I believe he joined before the season or before the Summer Showdown, but when you add a new coach from Talon Esports, which is a very good program, I think that really helps you a lot. So really good things coming out of this team that I think are really notable. But we'll have to wait and see what happens in this match. I think the Paris Eternal are the better team, obviously. I think the Paris Eternal take this one pretty easily and pretty convincingly. I just think they're that much better as a team. But I do think the Defiant have a real shot at making some really good progress as the season progresses. And I think that they have a good shot at potentially being one of those upset teams who makes a decent playoff run, but I don't think they're going to be one of the 4 teams playing for the championship when we get there. Next is the Atlanta Reign against the Florida Mayhem. I like the Mayhem for a lot of the same reasons why I like the Valiant. We've seen the Mayhem perform at a high level. I think the Mayhem and the Valiant are very similar teams in terms of where they are at as a whole. Both of these teams won against the Reign the last time they played against the Reign. I think that that is still true. I don't think that that changes. The Reign have not really impressed me recently. They've had some decent performances. Their Summer Showdown and their June performances weren't the worst. They didn't get rolled by Toronto in the Summer Showdown. It was a very close match that Toronto ultimately ended up winning. June, they were the second best team overall, though that's somewhat disingenuous because they only got second because the Fusion lost to the Shock because they had to play each other. So I think that this is really a Reign team that is good enough to beat the weak opponents, but they don't really stand much of a chance against the middle of the pack or higher opponents. I think that is what the Florida Mayhem are. I think the Florida Mayhem are a very legit and very solid team, and I think that they take this one pretty easily. I'm going to say 3-1 for this one. Final match of the weekend, Boston Uprising. Oh, man, taking on the LA Valiant. Boston Uprising, not the best way to end the weekend. Not a very strong team. So I go this one for the LA Valiant. I think this is a pretty easy pick. I think the Valiant should win this one pretty convincingly. Not as good as the Shock, but Uprising haven't given me much faith, especially recently. They don't look very good. They really have struggled a lot this season. They have a lot of things that they need to change, I think, as a team to become one of the best possible teams they can. And I just think the Valiant take this one because the Valiant are ultimately the better team. So those are all my picks. I will throw up my little spreadsheet thing real quick so you can see them all in one place. But yeah, that's it. That's everything that I have for today. If you enjoyed, consider liking and subscribing for more content like this in the future. Let me know in the comments down below your thoughts on this new format that I figured I would try, because I've seen some comments from people who aren't as big of a fan of the spreadsheet thing, and I just wanted to try this out because I've been trying some other stuff out with my other videos, and I figured I would do the same for this one. So please let me know in the comments down below your thoughts on anything that I talked about today, the format, as well as my picks, and leave your own picks in the comments down below if you would like. But that is all from me. Thank you once again. Hope you're all staying safe and staying healthy, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye bye.